0, 1. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Morgan-Burge and I'm your host. I'm the author of 12 books, a CEO of 13 years, an elite performance coach for over 19 years, having worked with athletes throughout Europe, United States to Australia. I'm the world's leading scientist on coach and athlete performance, specifically behind how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking. My work includes everything from mitigating injuries to conditioning behaviors that set a player up long term for the long game towards a top 10 tennis ranking. I'm behind theories from the optimal performance theory, optimal behavior for optimal performance, the barrier breaker, the rule of transference to the golden rule. As has become custom, each episode we dive into the latest rankings and results on the WTA and ATP tours and deliver new data implications as shared in my latest release over here, how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking, with over 120 episodes now to date. Today's insights play its own role, like so many other episodes, on developing the player, coach to parent for that road ahead towards that top 10 tennis ranking. So as always, buckle in and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 123 of Beyond Top 10 Tennis. If you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much. You know where we've come from, what we're about, everything that has essentially happened in between. If you are new, welcome. Thank you so much. As always, I really would encourage you to track back to those earlier episodes that really focused on my initial releases that I will share today, because I do have them on hand. The secrets to optimal performance success, and we got around halfway through the secrets to optimal coaching success. These are actually original covers if you are looking at the live feed here. So when you do get your hands on these, they may look a little bit different, but these are really important, and they set the foundations essentially that we built in those roughly episodes through to the beginning, up to I think around 60, 70, until this year we did take that change of pace that really, my latest release that was released roughly December last year, that really was that trajectory that allowed us to really dig a bit deeper, share those insights, why that wasn't done. And it's essentially a very big learning curve, and I talk about that a lot throughout all of the episodes. So from the initial releases, really learning those core foundations, which is just as applicable if you're currently ranked inside the top 10, top 100, top 500, irrespective, or you're looking at getting there. Really, really important, just to get your head around the conversations around the data, how the data is applicable to you and your game, and to really learn what's at stake, what's ahead. And I think there's so much more, but also I have started to insinuate in our more recent episodes the current book I'm working on, and I'm really trying to not give too much away, but I'm equally very excited, but it's very, very challenging, because I know what I want it to be, and I'm very meticulous to make sure that it does develop essentially. Why I'm sharing that is because there's so much involved in all of these texts, but also beyond top 10 tennis, that there's somewhat of an integration of sorts that is underway. So if you haven't got your hands on all of the collection, maybe you've only got your hands on some of, that's okay. I have taken that into consideration, but do tune in, especially towards, I think, the end of the year, when, fingers crossed, the release will happen. Time will tell. Look, today's episode, we have some ranking changes, especially going off last week. We didn't have too many ranking changes. We had some events, but we really gave insights in the initial first rounds of those draws yet to really unfold. And we focused on some of the lower tier events, really the last almost 2-3 weeks since the US Open, because we had a lot of top players resting. So this week is a little bit different. We do have some events to report on, or share those updates, but some more, or the bigger events that are unfolding, literally kicking off today. We're going to preview the initial rounds, but we can't obviously share more. What's really interesting though is the players that are not playing, primarily, let's say Swiatek, for example, and what that means as far as her rankings concerned. She's hit or surpassed Barty in respect to the rankings, holding on to that number one ranking, 7th of all time. We've got players who are not playing. I'm not too sure if Djokovic is going to be playing in the upcoming weeks. But I think what's really important is sharing that irrespective what level you are at now, I wanted to try and have a conversation around that. And I have some, let's say, some exciting episodes in the works that will be released, let's say in the later part of this year, to, I think, go back towards some of these, the conversations we were having around the secret optimal coaching success, and obviously early the secret optimal performance success. So you get to integrate more of these key learnings into your game. All right, so we're going to kick off, as always, WTA Tour. Before we head on over to the ATP Tour, we'll just pop them over there. But they are on display for those of you, again, who are looking. And I don't typically get the chance to share. Look, one of these ones here is really important, that the elite research method. It really dives down about how you can apply some key practices yourself, especially for, I will say, the coaches, the parents out there, to crunch the numbers for the player at hand. If you're a player, this is really, it's invaluable. Teaching you some of the, let's say, rulers that I integrate into all of these metrics. This one is an absolute necessity. The science of elite performance, as you can see, it is very, very substantial. No other text I have published to date is this substantial. I'm not too sure it ever will be. It is absolutely immense. But it does serve a very important purpose, that once you get your hands on this, as with those earlier books and the ones that after, that once you read them, really instill the key learnings into your game, you really are heading in the right direction. All right, so we are going to kick off. The number one, the event that we're going to focus on to begin with is WTA Tour Haddad Open, so in Korea. We did touch on, let's say, the round of 32 last week. So we are going to kick off round of 16. So if you did not, or you're not familiar with who's playing, do catch up in last week's episode. But we're going to have a rundown here because it's quite interesting when we look at the rankings, ranking movers, but also why players may be progressing who have not even been playing, to really start that conversation around why the rankings for some players are skewed, so they are not correct, but also why some players are not progressing as far in the rankings as we really would like them to be, and some lessons around there. All right, so Korea, what's I think interesting here, it is a 500 event, which means it is packed with points, and that is why when we get to the rankings later, you will notice some key ranking movers that we wouldn't have seen over the last, let's say, 1-2 weeks because of the lower tier events. So it's very substantial, even first, second rounds, third rounds, and so on. All right, so Kasatkina was the number one seed here. Round of 16, played off against Baptiste. Good win here, 4-2. Last week, we did have a look or a conversation around, let's see what number ones can track as far, because historically, the last couple of weeks, we're not seeing that the seeds really fall into place, especially the later half, so semifinals, finals, where we'd really love to see the top 4 seeds, for example, if there's that correlation between current level of play and their performances. So good for Kasatkina there. All right, Raducanu and Stearns were in action last week, if you recall, and we weren't able to report on that update. Stearns is, in fact, ahead of Raducanu in the rankings, or at this time, as this was unfolding. Raducanu did get that win in 2 tiebreaks, very, very close. So round of 16, Raducanu played Yuan, the 8th seed. Raducanu, very good, with a win 4-3. Schneider's the 4th seed over Zayo, 3-3. Watson fell to Kostyuk, 5th seed. Good win for Kostyuk, 2-2. Alexandrova, 7th seed over Kudermetova. Kudermetova did an upset there on Alexandrova. Very interesting there, 2-5. Haddad Maia is the 3rd seed. Tomljanovic was her opponent, 3-4 to Haddad Maia. Remember, Haddad Maia, US Open, a very, very big progression for her that wasn't typically, I will say, seen or predicted. But what we're seeing here, and we will touch on this later, is a little bit of a resurgence, similar to the likes of, I will say, Fritz, how we did have that lull, Zhang, how she did have that lull, some other players, and now we're starting to find more peaks here. And Haddad Maia, and if you have listened to early episodes as well, this is not shocking when we said potentially her ranking will go from, say, 30 towards 20, maybe inside the top 20, if she tracks, if she maintains this level of play, or if she doesn't, could go the other way. They were around those special edition episodes for the US Open. All right, still round of 16. Anisimova, Tomova. Anisimova did retire. Tomova 7-5. 4-1. It's a little bit disappointing there. She had a very good first round win over Putintseva. Kudermetova and Samsonova played off. Samsonova's the 2nd seed. Kudermetova with the upset there, 4-2. Very interesting, especially when we're going to look at, say, the rankings, primarily top 20 later. All right, this brings us now to the quarterfinal stages. Kasatkina, Raducanu. I think what's really interesting here, Kasatkina, number 1 seed, 6-1. And then Raducanu retired for that 2nd set. It's going to be very interesting to see how Raducanu, I think, plays in the upcoming weeks, because there's been a lot of noise around the Asian swing being her favoured time of year. But obviously, if you are not able to maintain full health throughout the later half of the year, it's going to be problematic. You're not going to be able to progress as far as you would like to if your body is not healthy and strong, able to withhold essentially the demands of the tour. Schneider and Kostyuk matched up. What's really interesting here is that Schneider's the 4th seed, Kostyuk is the 5th seed. The seeds played out. 7-6, that was 9-7, 6-3 to Schneider. That's a very good win, because 6 months ago it would have been the other way. Kostyuk really started the year absolutely immensely, very profound results. Schneider started to track. Her level has been up and up and up. Obviously, we've talked about that in previous episodes. And finally, she broke into the top 20. Huge run, very significant. One of, if not the biggest performance this year. Need to underscore that. Collins, obviously, yes, but Schneider, absolutely stellar results. Paolini, obviously, you have to put it number 1, but very, very good for Schneider for that win over Kostyuk, because Kostyuk is an absolutely solid player. All right, Kudermetova, Haddad Maia. Haddad Maia, 3rd seed again. Good win over Kudermetova, 2-1. You can see Haddad Maia is starting to, or she's keeping the form from the US Open. We haven't typically seen that this season from her at all. This is very good. She's able to maintain that form, especially hard court season. Kudermetova with a good win over Tomova, 5-3. So well done to Kudermetova there. All right, so semi-finals, I think what's really interesting, and I've just said it a few moments ago, we're looking at are the top 4 seeds coming through. We've got the 1st seed in Kasatkina, the 4th seed in Schneider, and the 3rd seed in Haddad Maia. Obviously, we know the 2nd seed did bow out. We did say in that 2nd round there. So very, very good when we're looking at that 75%. It's very impressive. Even more so when we go, all right, Kasatkina, number 1 seed, Schneider, 4th seed, Kasatkina with the win, 3-4. The seeds are unfolding. We have not seen this for some time now. This is a very, very positive outcome. Haddad Maia with the win over Kudermetova, 4-4. Again, very, very good as far as rankings and seeds. I did talk about this primarily for the best part of the last 6-9 months, that the rankings were skewed and we were waiting for the corrections to happen. A bit more of a correction after the French, a bit more of a correction then after Wimbledon, even more so after the US Open finally. And what we're seeing is that I'm looking at the data, I'm sharing this with you going, well, the rankings don't add up. These performances, this is where they should be ranked. Thankfully, and obviously courtesy of the data as well, we're now seeing more of a correlation. Players that should be ranked in the top 10 are ranked in the top 10. It's not correct, it's not absolute, and we'll get to that later, but very, very important to be mindful of. All right, Haddad Maia with a win over Kasatkina in the final here, a 1-6, 6-4, 6-1. Very, very impressive for Haddad Maia, kicking off again from the US Open. Haddad Maia did have a more impressive run at the US Open, for example, over Kasatkina, so this is a very good run for Kasatkina. We also said again, or I shared, that Kasatkina could be another barrier breaker this season if she started to track. We're not seeing that yet, but this is a very good result, very promising, that maybe, just maybe, Kasatkina might become a barrier breaker this season. Haddad Maia, with this standout result, she's getting very, very close. And why she's getting that chance, because we're seeing a lot of players drop off that were around that or on the cusp of the top 10, just inside the top 10. We're seeing that correction with them regressing, which is really opening up some places for players who are performing essentially at this end of the season. All right, so that wraps up again the Korean Open. Again, a 500 event, so we are going to see some very, very substantial points when we do touch on the rankings. Thailand. The Thailand Open, again, is another, it's a 250 event. So the points we know that come with this are going to be less, but also the names in play, we're not as familiar. So not necessarily say top 30 players. We did obviously touch on the round of 32 last week. Number one seed was Sramkova. She fell first round. We will touch on the seeds as we track through. So round of 16, Hontama over Taradudi in 3 sets. Hartono over Gayo in 3. I'll just go quickly through these earlier rounds. Wang, the 3rd seed, she fell to Masarova in 3. Siegemund over Wang in 3 sets. I do believe Siegemund and Wang in the 5th seed was the 4th longest match at tour level. I did touch on early or read over the past week. And I believe this match went for a little over 4 hours. Absolutely substantial. I cannot really run that home enough, where women are just as capable of having those 3-4 hour matches, where a men's 5-set match might not even last this long. It's really fascinating and a very good conversation, something that is being included in some way, shape or form in that release that is obviously in the works. Gracheva fell, I'll say, to Vet, but there was a walkover there. Shmakova over Lynette in straight sets. That's an upset. Lynette's the 4th seed. Zhang over Volnyets, the 6th seed, another upset. So that was in 3. Podoroska over Siniakova, the 2nd seed. That's an upset in straight sets. Podoroska has been tracking this season, but that is another example with both the 1 and 2 seeds, for example, and others wiped out in those initial rounds. All right, our quarterfinal stage, Hartono over Hontama in 3 sets there. Siegemund over Masarova, straight sets. Sramkova over Fet in 3. Zhang over Podoroska in 3. That's a very good win for Zhang there. All right, semi-final stage. Let's have a closer look. Siegemund over Hartono, 3 and 3. Shmakova over Zhang 4 and 2. And we have another maiden title winner. We've been having a lot, essentially, well, pre and post US Open, new title, first time a titleist on tour. Shmakova with a very good win over Siegemund, 4 and 4, very impressive. So big congratulations there to Shmakova. All right, over now to the China Open. Now, this just literally kicked off today. Matches will go underway later today. So when you are tuning in to today's episode, you may see those first round results already done and dusted, but as we are sharing, these are yet to be played out. The scheduled play, though, is in force. Let's have a look, though, at the draw. It is very huge. It's 128. We are talking about 1,000 tour event. Very, very significant. What's really noteworthy is Swiatek is not playing. Sabalenka is the number 1 seed. And as far as points are concerned, this is going to bring Swiatek and Sabalenka very, very close. I do believe if Sabalenka has a very, very good run here, potentially, I believe maybe within 400-500 points within reach, which does mean Sabalenka has a chance to finish the year as world number one. A little bit unfair when you're looking at just because a player does not play, it does notch those points off, but that is how, unfortunately, it does work. So it'll be very, very interesting. Noteworthy is Sabalenka does have a bye first round, and she has a very, very good draw. Up front, I'm sharing this because she will potentially, round of 16, will play Haddad Maia. And as far as, let's say, the US Open is concerned, for example, we know how well Sabalenka played. Haddad Maia played very well as well. She's coming off that title win just last week, but that is her first potential problem there. So the draw at this stage is looking that it's really working in Sabalenka's favour. I think something's going to have to go quite, let's say, wrong, or another player's really going to have to come out with an absolute peak performance. But it looks like potentially Sabalenka is definitely favoured. I'm just going through the draw briefly before we break it down. But on the other side of the draw, look, Paolini's there. I think it would be absolutely sensational for her to have a really good, I think, notch up at least a handful of wins here. And it looks like, as far as the round of 16 is concerned for Paolini, she could face Bekic. So that is a repeat potentially of the Wimbledon semi-final, I do believe it was, when those two, and that was very, very close. So I think that it's going to be equally as incredibly interesting how this draw does play out. We know Kasatkina almost, so obviously finalist last week, but this draw is very impressive. We've got Zhang. She does have a relatively easy path through, I will say, through to the round of 16 as well, where potentially she then will play Kasatkina. That'll be quite interesting. Ostapenko, obviously, she is potentially going to be dangerous if she plays like she did at the beginning of the season. Kalinskaya, it looks like they are on a crash course. Kostyuk, we know how she's been playing, but again, Schneider did upset her last week. Osaka's in action in this little quarter as well. But it also looks like that's a collision course with Gauff. So another noteworthy player who is not in action here is Rybakina. So we know Rybakina looks like she's out due to, again, health reasons, unfortunately. Look, Navarro's in action, very promising. We know what happened again, obviously, at the US Open. And Navarro looks like, I do believe, is on a crash course with Schneider. So that is going to be, for that's around a 16, which leaves the bottom quarter. We've got Badosa there. And it looks like, just checking if I am right, yeah, Pegula. So Badosa Pegula to notch off that round of 16. I am absolutely looking forward to this. I'm really disappointed Rybakina and Swiatek are not in action, but there is so much we can learn from players who are going to progress. Granted, we do have a number of top players obviously inside the top 10 playing, not at the round of 16, but maybe at the quarterfinal stages, we are going to start seeing maybe some problems, but I think that's when it's going to get really interesting. Unfortunately, I'll say the earlier rounds of these draws, it looks like it should be typically smooth sailing, but one noteworthy player who's obviously it's important to keep an eye on is Makova. Makova, she's in the same part of, as Krejcikova, but Makova, if she does track through, she then is on a collision course with Samsonova. You need to give Makova, I think, the benefit of the doubt as far as that one's concerned. All right, let's have a look through top to bottom key first round matches. Sabalenka with the bye. She'll play the winner of Diaz and Zhang's Cow. Apologies for the mispronunciation as always. Wang Kruger, Lulu's son has a bye first round, 29th seed. Keys has the bye. Ross Way, Haddad Maia with a bye. Samsonova with a bye. Rodionova, Cocchiaretto, Mertens with a bye. Makova and Blinkova. The winner of that will play Yuan, the 30th seed. Krejcikova with a bye. She'll play the winner of Bonda and Christian. Paolini with the bye, and she'll play the winner of Dart and Torsen. Lynette, she has a bye, 31st seed. She'll play the winner of Ushiyama and Shi. Gulbik and Wang. I am skipping over a number of matches here. Osorio will play Tomljanovic. The winner will play Pavlyuchenkova, the 19th seed. Yastremska, 25th seed with a bye, will play the winner of Podroska and Ren. Birrell did qualify. Now, Birrell is a local on the Gold Coast, and that's where Beyond Top 10 Tennis is based. So she's really had a stellar run in the qualifying. If she can get through against Rakhimova in the first round, she will face Zhang then in the second round, and that will be absolutely stellar. All right, Ostapenko has the bye. She'll play the winner of Evanesian and Bektas. Siegemund, after her stellar week last week as well, she's got Stadabrista first round, and so the winner of that will play Siniakova, the 27th seed. Baptiste Gracheva, the winner will play Kalinske in the second round. Volnyets Galfi, the winner will play Kostyuk in the second round. Bronzetti and Osaka, that'll be interesting. The winner will play Putintseva in the second round. Trevisan Townsend, winner will play Bulter. Dolhide Burrell, the winner will play Gorf. Zhang and Kessler, the winner will play Navarro in the second round. Erica Andreeva and Minin will play, or Potapova will play the winner of that. Potapova has been tracking 28th seed. Fretch, she'll play the winner of Wang and Parks. Kenan Bogdan, the winner will play Schneider in the second round. Sorenko Tomova, the winner will play Badosa. Other, I think, noteworthy, initial lineups, we've got Parry and Lang will play Pegula in the second round. Wang, Anisimova, the winner will play Kudermetova. I think that really wraps up those first round results. I'm really interested to see how I think everything tracks through to, let's say, the round of 16. And if all the seeds, as let's say, should progress, so as far as the rankings or seeds are concerned, the quarterfinals, I think, is going to be more interesting. Really nitty-gritty semifinals who can push through. I think it's very, very dangerous for Swiatek as far as rankings are concerned. If Sabalenka pushes through past that quarterfinal stage, we know she's then maintaining her current peak performance. Very significant. Same, it'll be interesting to see how Pegula tracks, especially from the US Open. Navarro as well, how she performs. Haddad Maia, if she's still maintaining, if she's going up a notch. Vekic, how she's playing. There's so many players. Badosa, for example. Osaka, if she's picking up, we know she had that disappointing run at the US Open, didn't perform as much as she would have liked to have. There are a lot of, I think, backstories to a lot of these players. I think noteworthy absence is Mira Andreeva. She must still be out. She did, I think, pick up a bit of a niggle. But there are a lot of big names here. And I'm really looking forward already to next week's episode to share, I think, more, insights as far as these results are concerned. All right, that's it, WTA Tour. So let's head on over to the rankings before we head on over to the ATP Tour. All right, from the 100 through to 1. Zhu, she's up 6 places, 30-year-old from China for 100 there. Dolhide has taken a hit, 53-point regression to 98 in the world. And look at this 7-point progression, Danilovic, 97 in the world. We've been saying this over the last couple of months. Danilovic, she's been tracking. She was going to break into the top 100 sooner rather than later. So that's very, very impressive. I love it when the data obviously adds up. Rus, very similar. She's cracked in just to the top 193 with an 8-point progression there. Sherr's up 4 at 89. Irani's up 4, 87. Looking for some really big noteworthy movers. Here we go. Stevens taken a very big hit. She's at a 10-point regression, 75. It was only actually about 2 months ago now, maybe only 4 weeks ago. Stevens was ranked inside or just the top 40, around that 41 ranking range. So she's taken a very big hit recently. A little bit disappointing, but look, she has that Grand Slam to her name. You can never write Stevens off. So it'll be very interesting to see if she's able to find some form before the year is out. Osaka, she's up 3 to 73 in the world. All right, Wozniacki is up 2 to 70. Very impressive for Siegemund. Again, 36 years of age. Siegemund's having a stellar season. So she's up 30 points to 69 in the world. This has to be Siegemund's, I think, highest singles ranking in some time. She's a stellar doubles player. All right, Podoroska, she's up 8 to 66 in the world. Gracheva's up 462. Sramkova with that maiden title, I believe it was, 41-point progression. 61 in the world, which means she was just ranked outside the top 100. And it really shows, I think, what you can do in the space of a week if everything comes together. All right, closing in on the top 50 almost. Raducanu, 16-point progression, and she just had 2 rounds, I believe it was, this week before that second set retirement. 16 place up, 54. Very, very impressive. Maybe, just maybe, if Raducanu has a couple of good wins over the next couple of weeks, she could get very close to the top 30 to set her up for next season. All right, Townsend, she's back 5 to 52. Wang's up 2 to 50 in the world. Makova's up 2 to 49. Kalinina's up 2 to 48. A lot of small movers there. Anisimova, she's up 3 to 43 in the world. Lulu Sun, she's back 1 to 40 in the world. Noteworthy though, this week in China, she's the 29th seed. So just to put the rankings in perspective as far as I think that's concerned. Yastremska, she's steady at 35. Bulta's up to 34. All right, top 30, here we come. Vondrasova, we know it was only just prior to Wimbledon. Vondrasova was ranked inside the top 10. So she's up 4 to 30 now in the world. Svitolina's up 1, 27. Pavlyuchenkova steady, 25. Azarenka's back 4 to 23 in the world. Mira Andreeva, she's up 1 to 22. Jabeur is up 1 to 21. Noteworthy is that these players have not been playing over the past week. So there's a bit of a shuffle going on about points being defended, maybe not being defended, and how that affects the rankings cumulatively. All right, Vekic is up 1 to 20. And we've got Badosa, Kostyuk, Sakkari, very, very significant. Sakkari has, I'll say, finally been bumped outside the top 10. Earlier this year, Sakkari was bumped outside of the top 10 very briefly. I think it was only a matter of 1 or 2 weeks. Then has maintained essentially a hold inside the top 10 for the best part of the last 6 months. We saw this was coming. The data really underscored this. Sakkari hasn't really been having a very good season as far as her results have been concerning. There hasn't been that correlation with her ranking. But so 17 now in the world is going to be very significant to see how Sakkari ends her year. If she nudges closer, or if this is the regression, unfortunately, and if she holds on, let's say, to at least top 30. Really looking for her to find that form again. We know what Sakkari is capable of. She was tracking earlier this season, but it's really taken a hit. Similar to, say, the likes of Vondrasova and Jabeur. They were top 10, but this is the correction that I was sharing. It needed to happen. That's pushed a lot of these players outside. All right, closing in on the top 10. Ostapenko's back 113. Haddad Maia, this is really significant. She's up 5 places to 12 in the world. Very, very important. There's literally only 200-ish points separating her from the top 10. Kasatkina is up 2 places to 11. Although we know Kasatkina has predominantly been hovering just outside the top 10, similar to Ostapenko, for the best part of the season. So Haddad Maia, I think, is actually quite dangerous. But look, Krejcikova, my apologies, is up 1. I'm not too sure where that came from because she was there, or she just got bumped out last week. Then now she's back in. Very interesting, but granted, Sakkari obviously has lost that top 10 position. This is going to be very interesting to see how the China Open does play out, especially for these 3 players, Haddad Maia, Kasatkina and Krejcikova, with less than that 200 points separating all 3 players. Collins is very close, probably still within that range, but there is a very big bump, I will say, an extra roughly 400 points between, let's say, the 9, 10, 11, 12 in the world, and then Navarro obviously is at 8. I would argue Navarro should be ahead of Zhang, who is 7 in the world, so it'll be very interesting as well how the points let's really rack up over the next week as well. All other rankings are steady. So as I did share earlier, Swiatek Sabalenka, there is that roughly 2,000 point difference. But if Sabalenka does do well, we know Swiatek's going to drop 1,000 this week, which will bring her down to like 9-8. And if Sabalenka does win, that will bring her up to 9-7. That's going to be, look, less than 200 points separating these players. Very, very significant. And I think that's why there's been so much noise, emphasis around how Sabalenka will perform, how that will affect Swiatek's ranking, because this is the first time, I think, all season the rankings have gotten this close. All right, that really wraps up now the WTA Tour. Let's head on over to the ATP Tour. A couple of events in place. We did dive into the lineups last week, but none of the matches really had unfolded. So we are going to start with the Chengdu Open in China, where Musetti was or is the #1 seed. Round of 32, Musetti with a bye first round. All right, O'Connell over Kotov, very good win for O'Connell, straight sets. Zhao over Seng in 3. Manarino, the 5th seed, over Altame, 3 sets. Jarry with the bye. Klein over Walton in straight sets. Kakamazov, the qualifier, he got through over Kokmovich, straight sets there. Daniel over Sonigo, straight sets. Mapesh Pericard over Sun in 3. Halfman over Mokizuki, straight sets. Vukic over Korik in 3. Second set tiebreak was 11-9. That's very impressive there. All right, Sauflin over Fognini in 3. Shang over Nishikori, 4-4. Still great to see Cave back in action. Bublik, second seed with the bye. I have skipped over a couple. I will focus on the later half of this draw. Bublik being the second seed, round of 16 now, straight sets win over Gomez, 4-4. Shang over Sauflin in 3 for the round of 16. Martinez, the 4th seed, over Vukic, straight sets. Mapesh Pericard, 7th seed, fell to Halfman in the round of 16 in 3. Kakamazov, the qualifier again over Daniel, 7-6, 6-1, which means Kakamazov, his ranking is going to climb. Jarry, 3rd seed, 3-set win over Klein. Zhao fell to Manarino in 3. And Musetti, 3-set win over O'Connell there. Very, very impressive there. All right, that brings us now to the quarterfinals. Let's have a little bit more of a closer view. Musetti is the 1st seed. Jarry is the 3rd seed. Bublik is the 2nd seed. And Martinez is the 4th seed. All players are in action for the quarterfinals. So look how this played out. 1st seed, Musetti with a 3-set win over Manarino, 6-2, 5-7, 6-2. Jarry's 3rd seed has fallen to the qualifier, Kakamazov, 3-4. Halfman got the win over the 4th seed, Martinez, 7-6, 6-2. Bublik has fallen to Shang, 6-4, 7-6. That's a 25% success rate. That's 3 of the top 4 out. 75% dropped off. Only Musetti was left standing, coming to the semifinals. All right, Musetti did get the win over the qualifier, Kakamazov. And look, what a huge week for the qualifier, 4-2. So well done to Kakamazov. That ranking should show when we get to that shortly. All right, Shang, very good win with Halfman. Shang's been tracking this season, so that's noteworthy or important to know. And how's this? Finals, Shang, Musetti. So at least we've got the #1 seed standing. Musetti really has been showing that form this season. But Shang, well done. Maiden title, 7-6. That was 7-4. 6-1, especially that second set. That's really, really huge there. So that really wraps up the 250 event in China. There will be points, but not as substantial as obviously the ones happening this week. That brings us now to the next event in Hangzhou. So another one in China, but also another 250 event. Now, look, we did touch on the first round lineups last week, but not the results. So let's dive in to the results to start with very, very quickly. Then we'll get a little bit more, we'll fine tune, obviously, the later half of the draw. All right, Rune was the #1 seed to put things into perspective. Uchijama over McCabe, straight sets. Cilic Really, look, he's got a 3 sets win, my apologies, over Shibata. But what's really important to note here, look, Cilic, this time last year was ranked inside the top 100. The beginning of 23, he was a top 20 player. His ranking really regressed outside the top 500. Last week, his ranking was just inside the top 800, 777 in the world. Now, after this week, and you'll realize shortly, Cilic's ranking is now inside the top 400, so 373 now in the world. Noteworthy, I think Cilic's last event was in February. He's had that 6 months off. I'm guessing there's more rehab underway, especially after last season. It's only really been back in action this month. So very, very noteworthy to, I think, be mindful of for Cilic, but very important as far as I think his performance are concerned. Nishioka, the 8 seed over Martier, 4 and 2. Wong over Yu, straight sets. Hijaka over Zumher in 3. Marazone over Nadi, straight sets. Zhang over Yeseyev in 3. Bellucci, straight sets over Karatsev. Karabellis Bayina, straight sets over Mute. Kukushkin over Darderi, the 5th seed, so straight sets there. Shevchenko over Trungaletti in straight sets. Gaston's fallen to Bu in straight sets. Kakanov is the 2nd seed. All right, round of 16 here. So a number of seeds already fell at that first hurdle. How's this? So Yoshiyama, the qualifier, got the win over Rune, round of 16, 7-4, 6-4. So number 1 seed has been upset in the 2nd round. All right, Cilic over Nishioka, the 8th seed, 4-1 to Cilic. Nakashima, the 4th seed, still in 3 sets win over Wong. Rinki, so Hijaka with a good win over Marazan. Looks like there was a walkover there. Zhang is the 6th seed, straight sets over Bellucci, so 6 seeds still in play. Karabellis Bayina, 3 sets win over Kruger. Kukushkin over Shevchenko in straight sets. And Bu has upset the 2nd seed Kakanov in 3 sets. All right, quarterfinal stage here. We have only 2 seeds standing for perspective. Nakashima, the 4th seed, and Zhang, the 6th seed. Here we go. Cilic with a good win over Yoshiyama in 3 sets. That was 6-2, 6-7, 7-6. Nakashima got the win over Hijaka, 5 and 3. Zhang with the win over Karabel's being 3 and 3. So both seeds are through. Bu with the win over Kukushkin. Now, how's this? As far as the semi-finals are concerned, almost. I got a little bit excited there, but almost. We did see that progression. 1 seed we have through. So Cilic has upset Nakashima 4 and 6. And that was 8-6 in that 2nd set tiebreaker. Zhang, the 6th seed, progressed past Bu, the wild card, 7-6, 6-4. Finals. Cilic, so this really underscores his ranking, so how he has been tracking, has got that win over Zhang, the 6th seed there, 7-6, 7-6. Look, that was 7-5 and 7-5 respectively for those tie breaks. That was neck and neck. So very, very impressive. When you're looking at Zhang, I believe Zhang's top 30. He has been tracking this season, but Cilic, really, this time last year, even though it was really earlier in the 23 season, top 20, he's been able to bring that back. And that really what does underscore the 8 keys. So again, how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking, the power of the 8th key, and the 7 keys are there. So you've been listening for some time now. You know how important all of those 8 keys are. If you are new, they are absolute. They're really the key differentiator between a top 10 ranking, maintaining a top 10 ranking, players who have more keys, nudge closer towards the top 10, less keys, outside the top 50, for example. All right, next we have the Laver Cup that was underway. So a little bit more in action for the men's draw this week in contrast to the past few weeks. So it's always a bit of fun to go over how these players have been tracking, but also no points were available here. And so that's why these players have not been in action the past week. All right, let's dive in. Tsitsipas over Kokkinakis 1 and 4 as anticipated. And again, keep in mind the round robin format doubles. Fritz and Shelton with a win over Alcaraz and Zverev. 7-6, 6-4. That is a very impressive win. Very cool lineup. Sarah Lundo over Rudd 4 and 4. That's an upset. Dimitrov over Tabilo 6 and 6, as I would say anticipated, but Tabilo a very good performance nonetheless. TFO good win over Medvedev. Check this scoreline out: 3-6, 6-4, 10-5. Just over an hour and a half. Very good win for TFO. Really, I think following along his US Open progressions. Shelton and Tabilo got the win over Rudd and Tsitsipas in the doubles 1 and 2. Alcaraz got the win over Shelton 4 and 4. Fritz with a very good win over Zverev 4 and 5, keeping, I think, that winning record that he's really, I think, developed this season. I think last season would have been a different story. Okay, a couple more matches. We have Zverev with the win over TFO now, 6-7, 7-5, 10-5. Huge win, but well done for TFO for keeping pace. Alcaraz and Rudd with the win over Shelton and TFO, 6-2, 7-6, 8-6 there. That's a lot of fun. Alcaraz with the singles win then over Fritz, 2 and 5. Very impressive for Alcaraz. I think really showing that form that I will say escaped him in those earlier rounds of the US Open. But I would argue that Alcaraz, he did have those tired legs. He needed that time away. And also, I think on a different note, Swiatek taking, I think, more time off really has needed that to find, I would say, that peak again. All right, last match for the Laver Cup was Shelton over Medvedev. That is an upset. 6-7, 7-5, 10-7. That went for a little bit over 2 hours. And I believe we did get Team Europe with the win over World there. 13-11, I think, was the eventual scoreline. A lot of fun to see, I think, some of these players in action. No points, obviously, are available. And I think noteworthy, who we did not see, Djokovic, obviously Nadal, and we knew he wasn't playing in Federer. But a little bit surprising that we didn't see Djokovic, I think, in action. All right, so we've got 2 more events on the men's side, Tokyo and Beijing this week. None of them are underway. We do have the Japan Open. That does kick off today. Beijing kicks off tomorrow. But let's have a look at the draw, because both of these events are 500s, which means there are going to be a lot of points to come with this. All right, so we've got Fritz is the number 1 seed. He's got Phil's first round. Vedazan Schultz, remember his performance from the US Open. Berrettini first round. Dederi Navone. Opelka Shelton. It'd be interesting to see how Shelton picks up from the Laver Cup if he tracks through. Likewise with Rudd, he's got Thompson first round. That's a tough first round. Cilic and Nishikori, that's really winding back the clock there, because I believe both Cilic and Nishikori were inside the top 10 roughly around the same time. Agor Alisime will have Nishioka, Tabilo, Rune. Let's see if Rune finds that form again, especially with that early exit last week. Paul's back in action. He's got Analdi first round. Popperin, McCack, Chevrian, O'Connell, Mitchelson, Tsitsipas. Let's see again if Tsitsipas can start tracking towards the end of the year. TFO and Nakashima, Mokazuki and Humbert, Draper, Bellucci. Again, let's see if Draper can pick up that form from the US Open, continue, maybe nudge closer towards the top 15. Giron and Hurkacz. So Hurkacz is the number 2 seed. Just to put the event, I think, into perspective as far as the rankings are concerned. So this is going to be, I think, quite interesting to see again how this 500 does play out, because next week we're able to have a bit more of a discussion around the rankings, ranking movers, and how it correlates performances in contrast to dropping points because of not playing essentially events that do not hold points from the Davis Cup the previous week to the Laver Cup. All right, that means we'll head on over to Beijing, so the China Open. And this is, again, a 500, but Sinner is the number 1 seed here, just to put things into perspective, and Alcaraz is in action, the 2nd seed. All right, Sinner, Jarry, first round, Struff and Wawrinka. Wacheka Martinez, Dimitrov will play a qualifier, Rublev, Carino Busta. You can really see a lot of, I will say, well, top 10 players are playing here in contrast to over in Japan. We've got Davidovich Fokina and Zhang coming off that title win. Shang and Bu, again, he had that title last week. Musetti will play a qualifier. Bublik, Kaboli, Zhao will play a qualifier. Manarino, Sonigo, Monfils, and Medvedev first round. That's a tough one for Medvedev, but still need to favour him nonetheless. Kakanakov will have a qualifier. Saralundo will have a qualifier. Grigensport and Kekmanovic and Mapesh Pericard and Alcaraz first round. I don't think that's going to be as easy as potentially anticipated. Mapesh Pericard has been tracking this season nonetheless. So really, I think interesting. Similar, I think, with the China Open on the women's side. China Open on the men's side, but also the Japan Open. It's going to be really interesting next week. I'm looking forward to the results already, even though I think between them, obviously the China and Japan Open respectively, it's not the same caliber as the China Open on the WTA Tour. We're still going to have some interesting conversations there, but really noteworthy, I think, is the 1000 event that's kicking off today. All right, let's head on over to the ATP rankings. We will see some movers, but again, got to keep in mind the Davis Cup through to the Laver Cup that has been essentially unfolding with those smaller scale events. All right, Kukushkin is at 112-point progression. Great to see. Bu has a 28-point progression to 96 in the world. Welcome to the top 100. 22-year-old from China. We know he's been making some inroads the past week. Zuma is back 8 to 94 in the world. Saboth Wild is up 9 to 87 in the world. Halfman is 13-point progression to 82 in the world. O'Connell's are back 4 to 79. Kokonakis is steady at 78. I'm not too sure as far as Team World how that was put together when we were considering rankings, but it was really good to see Tanazzi in the lineup nonetheless. Hajaka is ahead, however. He's up 576 in the world. He's had a really good season in comparison. All right, looking for the big ranking movers. Muna is a 12-point progression up to 62 in the world. Diaz Acosta, he's up 357. Shevchenko's up 256. We've got, here we go, Shang, very big jump. 15-point progression to 52 in the world. That's what we want to see. Monfils is back to 46. Giron's back to 47. Berrettini's back to 45. So all three in that little ranking range there. Manarino, he's up to 44 in the world. Martinez, he's back 143. All right, Zhang's up 741 in the world. Lecheka's back 137. Nakashima's up 3 to 36 in the world. All right, top 30, not too many moves. We know Thompson's inside the top 30 at 29 now. Bublik is 26. I believe he was ranked a little bit higher over the past couple of weeks, taking a hit, but it looks like he's starting to progress again. Fils is up 124 in the world. That is a ranking high. 20-year-old from France really started to make his move around the French Open, and he is maintaining that. That's why it's very important to know. Fils, I think, is a little bit of a dark horse there. Poprin, he's up 123, another ranking high for Poprin. Well done. Draper's steady at 20. I think if he has a very good week, nonetheless, Draper could very well edge closer towards the top 15. Musetti, similar, he's up 1 again, 18 in the world. Other rankings are somewhat the same. 17 is Shelton, 16, quarters back 1, so that's quarter. Tiafoe is up 115. Paul is 13. Rune is in between at 14. I really would anticipate a bit of a switch up there, really considering Rune hasn't been performing. Paul has, Tiafoe has, quarter somewhat Shelton has. So that ranking really, that range is somewhat incorrect, I would argue. All right, closer towards the top 10, 12 is Tsitsipas. There's 300 points separating him and Paul. Tsitsipas really needs a good run this week. And there is roughly, I'll say, a little under 300 separating him from de Minaur. And really, I think Alex should be pushed back into the top 10 as far as his season is concerned. But there's again roughly 300 separating Alex from Dimitrov, who is 10. I would probably argue Ruud and Hurkacz and Rublev, as far as their levels are concerned, are more susceptible to regress outside the top 10. Diminor should be inside. I would probably argue there's room for Paul to be bumped inside the top 10 as well. Musetti's been tracking very well in the later part of the season. Hurkacz and Rudd had a very good first half of the season. Let's see if they can finish strong and really earn that top 10 ranking. We haven't seen much of that, I will say, lately. All right, top 10 is relatively the same. We have not seen any movers. We know Zverev's dropped a couple of points, but it's very, I think, surprising still to see Zverev at number 2. And then Alcaraz is 3, Djokovic 4, Medvedev, Rublev, Fritz, Hurkacz rather than Dimitrov. Dimitrov has dropped just a little bit of a handful of points over the past week. What's really, I think, noteworthy will be, again, how both the Japan and China Opens do play out as far as points are concerned, because even though it does not look like Sinner's going to be overtaken anytime soon, Alcaraz can reclaim number 2 over Zverev, I do believe. Djokovic, I think that's too soon to tell if both Zverev, Alcaraz maintain that form. Sinner, he's ahead. He's looking like he is going to finish the year ahead. Really puts into perspective, Alcaraz was numb, then Sinner won, then Sinner overtook. Both of them had 2 Grand Slams apiece, but really shows the tournaments in between. Also, interestingly, Zverev has 23 events he's played this season. Sinner and Alcaraz are 18 and 17 respectively. Djokovic is 18. We know they do take the averages, but just to show how many events they've had to play to really get those best of rankings. Rublev's at 25. That's huge. Medvedev 18. Fritz, Hurkacz 22 each, Rudd 23, Dimitrov 20. So I think what's really impressive when we're looking at Medvedev, Djokovic 18, Alcaraz 17, Sinner 18, that they haven't had to play as many events to get those results, and that's quite impressive to consider. All right, that really wraps up, I think, the rankings. Looking forward again, or even forward to next week, and really how the events do unfold, because I think there's going to be a lot to be shared as far as the rankings are concerned. All right, so thank you so much for listening. To grab your copy of How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, the 7 keys, or even the earlier releases I did share, head on over to AM8 International, look for the books tab, or head on over to Amazon, irrespective where you are based in the world. Any comments or questions, head to AM8 or Topic Thread. That's a social platform set on data privacy and that space for tennis players to interact. Also, you can leave comments directly on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, head on over to AM8 International, and you'll see all of our social handles in the episode notes as well. And to catch up on our blogs, again, head on over to AM International, look for our blogs tab, or head on over to Substack. All links again in the episode notes. Something different, Pink Octopus books. Something left of field, Spruik for some random polls. And of course, really important, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, or share. All of the above would be absolutely phenomenal. For those who are interested, as always, we do have scholarships available at AM International, as well as options to work with me exclusively to nudge your performance closer towards that top 10 tennis ranking and or achieving replicated success. So don't be shy and come and say hi. Okay, on that note, thank you so much for listening. I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan-Burge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis.